Hey, what's up guys? It's Blacktop here. Today I wanted to bring you a video about deck building in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now before I begin, I will say that I have not built very many competitive decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Meaning like decks that I could take to a tournament and do well at. I haven't done any of those. But I do like to build a lot of casual decks, legacy support decks, things like that. And some decks that could be good, but I just want to build them for the fun. And so today I'm going to talk about the steps in deck building and why each one is important and why this is probably the best order to go in. So number one, first and foremost, you have to select what archetype or what kind of deck you're going to have. So for example, nowadays we have archetypes that are doing well, like tier 0 and tier 1 archetypes, tier 2 like spirals, pendulum magicians, trick stars, things like that. That's an archetype. They all usually share a name, or they share a certain thing, like magician, pendulum, monsters. That's what links the pendulum magician archetype together. And so by doing that, a lot of the cards work well with each other, and they have good support with spell traps. So that's the main thing you want to look at. There are different things you can look at when selecting your archetype, such as design, the sort of mechanic it uses, and really just how competitive it is. And I talked to I didn't talk about it, but the other day I was thinking about what makes a deck good, and some people go after certain kinds of decks because they're good and because of the things that makes them good, but some of them go after them for purely fun or purely casual reasons. For example, like the Dark Magician and Blue Eyes decks, which I like to play. I go after them because they are legacy decks. So really, the most important thing is choosing the archetype or the strategy that the deck does. Now, I will say, back when Yu-Gi-Oh! First started out, there weren't any archetypes. There were just individual cards, and so it was a little bit more difficult to build decks back then because you didn't have, like, the cards didn't share a name, so you couldn't really figure out what worked well with each other. You had to be better skilled in order to do so. But nowadays, with the advantages we have by having archetypes and by having card databases where we can search different sorts of effects and different names of cards, that makes the first step a lot easier. Now, the second step is after you choose your archetype or your strategy, you want to look at cards in the archetype or that relate to the strategy and see what to use and try to figure out initially how much of what you want to play. So, for example, let's go to a really small archetype. I don't even know if you'd call it that, more of an engine, but the Wind Witch archetype. Now, this archetype has these 5 cards here, and the main monsters we want to look at are these 3 right here. So you have Wind Witch Ice Bell, Glass Bell, and Snow Bell. Now, because the monster lineup is so small, you're probably going to be playing, you're definitely going to be playing all of these, and multiple copies of them at that. And this one's really easy to figure out too, because if you're running a Wind Witch centric deck, you're going to have like 2 or 3 copies. Yeah, like 3 copies of Ice Bell, 3 copies of Glass Bell, and maybe even 3 copies of Snow Bell. I'm not too familiar with what other people are playing, so that's what I would run. But just by looking at it, if I was running a Wind Witch only deck, because of their effects and because of what they're meant to do. So by looking at that, you can see, okay, well, we'll put a couple more of these in here, a couple more of these, and a couple more of these. We'll sort those out, and so that is our basic Wind Witch baseline right there. Now, it does have this fusion, which this one, we'd have to run a fusion card in order to make it, so it's probably not the best bet. That's probably not what we want to go with here, because this engine is focused around synchro summoning. It has 2 tuners out of the 3 main deck monsters, and so we want to put a couple of Winter Bells in there, 1 or 2, because that is the synchro it goes into. So after you figured out sort of what the main purpose of the deck or what archetype it is and how many cards of each you should put in there, and this is just like an initial thing, you can also look at other people's deck profiles and look at what other people are running to see what you would like to do. So initially you're just going to put these in there and just think, okay, this looks good, I think I'm just going to stick with this, because the play testing comes after all of the deck building steps. So speaking of steps, the next one is to look at the staple cards you're going to need. So for example, some staples include Raigeki. That's a good one right now. It destroys all monsters your opponent controls. Dark Hole's another one. We'll put that in if we have room. Let's look at Cosmic Cyclone. This is a good one. Maybe put 2 in there or something. Pot of Desires. You might even put 3 of this in there. We'll put 2. Okay. So Pot of Desires, these are all good spell traps to have in there. Oh, we got to put the Solemn Brigade in there. Let's put a couple of those in the warning. And so you can see right here, almost half of our deck is filled up. We're 3 away from half. And this is just not very much stuff. So we need to figure out some other stuff we can put in here. Maybe we'll put another strike in at the end. But we'll figure that out later. Now we're going to look at tech cards. Now, tech cards are cards that are not staples and they're not archetype related, but they help out the deck accomplish its win condition. So, for example, you notice that Wind Witch has a lot of spellcaster type monsters. So there's some spellcaster support we can put in here to aid the deck. And so the spellcaster support I'm thinking of is the Spellbook engine. So if we look at Spellbook, Spellbook used to be a really good deck, I think about 3-4 years ago, something like that, and then they banned Spellbook of Judgment, and that sort of killed it off. But we want to put in, let's see, the main Spellbook engine, and you can look this up. Different people have done the Spellbook engine, and Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, so we'll probably put 2 of those in there, maybe even 3. We'll put 3 in there, and then you want to put maybe 3 Knowledge, because this is a good draw spell. This helps with the consistency of the deck. And Secrets, which is the searcher for the spellbook cards. So 3 each of those that really can help boost the consistency of the deck. Now, some other stuff you might want to do, since this engine just doesn't have a whole lot of stuff going for it, doesn't have a lot of main deck power or anything, you're going to be focusing on the extra deck a lot. Now, as of right now, we only have 2 extra deck monsters. So one thing we want to do is to look at the Invoked engine. This is another sort of tech setup that'll help boost the deck's power. So if you're playing the Invoked engine, well, we got to get Alistair, the Invoker, right here. And so we're going to put 3 of him in there. We're going to put 3 of the spell Invocation. And we might even put 3 Magical Meltdowns in there. We'll put 3 of those. And so we need to look at, and since Invokes revolve around the type of monster used with Alistair to fusion summon its monsters, we're going to put some winds and some waters in there. Now, I will say that Invoked Raijin and Invoked, where's the other one, Cocytus, they're not the best out of the Invoked. Raijin's probably the second best. The best is Makaba, and it is a light monster. So if you're running a deck, like some people in Trickstars, they'll run the Invoked engine. Makaba is a good choice if you're doing that. Let's see what else we can do here. So we've got 3 of those, 2 of these. That looks pretty good. Another thing people can do, I don't know if you would consider this a tech choice or in the hand trap section, but some people would like to run Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. 3 of those in this format at least. There's no telling if this card's going to be banned or not. Who knows? Oh, and also, how could I forget? Maxx C, one of the best staples in the game. I guess this is definitely most likely a staple, I would say. So we're going to put that in there. And since we added an earth and a fire, we're going to look at the invoked monsters and see if we can. There's an earth. We'll probably look at 1 each of these because they're not really that good, and then we don't really go into them a lot in this sort of deck. Now, and so we're still missing 1 card in the main deck here. Let's do. What should we do for that? Let's do. I don't know what we could put in there. I don't know a whole lot of tech cards, but that the Wind Witches run. But basically, you can look at other people's profiles and just kind of going off of what you know to see what you can put in here to tech in. So I'm just going to put another Cosmic Cyclone. So we're just going to put another one of those in there, and that'll make it a 3 Cosmic lineup there. And now you have to kind of use your knowledge here, or even the search function on this. So this deck can go into a level 7 and a level 8 Synchro monster. Now, if you're thinking of level 7 and level 8 Synchro monsters, I think of the Synchro Dragons. So what you can do here, we have Crystal Wing and Clear Wing. Those are 2 of the best Synchro monsters there are. Excuse me. You can make Clear Wing, sorry, with Wind Witch Ice Spell and Wind Witch Glass Spell, and then you can whenever you get those two out there, you can get the Snowball out there to make Crystal Wing. And that's really one of the main things this deck does. And then that's kind of the whole Wind Witch strategy, is to make Winter Bell or Clear Wing and then get Crystal Wing out there. It's kind of a one-trick pony, but this is probably one of the simplest decks I could figure out to show you good deck building strategy. Now we haven't filled up the extra deck completely here, and we could possibly tech in some some rank 4 Xyz monsters, maybe a couple of links, I don't know, because this would make a decent link engine. You can make a Decode Talker pretty easily. But its main trick, like I said, is to summon Crystal Wing Synchro Tiger. So I might just put another one of those in there, actually. That will help out a little bit. We could probably put Invoked Elysium in here, because we're running so many invoked monsters. Where is that? Elysium, right here. Okay, so we'll put Elysium in there. And I think, yeah, you can just put whatever else you want in here. We'll put Bagooska. Which one we want? I guess we'll just put this in here. Put Bagooska in there, because we're not going to go into that one a whole lot, because it's not really a rank 4 Xyz deck. And you know what? Hey, we'll put a Totally Awesome in there, I suppose, because we do have those 2 rank 2 water monsters. Oh no, it's Aqua type. Never mind, I screwed that up. So we're just gonna say that's good enough for right now. Now this video I will not talk about extra or side decking, but for that, or I'll talk about it a little bit, I guess. But for the side deck, you kind of want to put in some things that are going to be good outs to things that your deck cannot accomplish very easily. So, for example, excuse me, if you wanted to, you could add a couple of link monsters to the extra deck. Take out a couple of these doubles here. Take out a couple of the Megalannica and the Purgatrio. Put in a link engine. And maybe tech a couple of Grinder Golems on the side, tucking in a couple of Gamma Seal, the Sea Turtle Kaiju, on the side is always good. I wouldn't do anything like an Anti-Spell Fragrance or anything like that. I might do some Ghost Ogre hand traps. That would be good as well. Maybe some Droll and Lockbirds, Trickster Reincarnation. That'd be a good side deck card. But basically, whenever you make your deck, anything your deck cannot do well, and that could potentially be the deck's downfall, or anything that it can't out very well, you want to make sure you prepare for that. So that's what the side deck's for. And last but not least, after all of this stuff, you want to playtest the deck. And so I recommend playtesting either at locals or with your friends, or sometimes if you have 2 decks, you can playtest by yourself. But mainly, I use this program. This is Wago Pro 2, I believe. There are like 5 different Wago Pros, which is kind of a problem with Wago Pro, but that'll be another video. But anyway, using any of the Wago Pros and playing some matches with them can really help you figure out what to do to make your deck more consistent and to achieve its win condition faster, and ultimately to figure out how much of what you should be running. That's the main part of the deck. And then after you play test, you have to repeat steps 2 through 4 again. You have to reevaluate how many cards from each archetype you're going to use, or what cards, how many of the other stuff you're going to use, and all that other stuff. And even maybe what to put in the extra deck. Who knows? But anyway, that is how you deck build. In essence, that's how you do it. It is really important to not only use what knowledge you have and use the card database, but also to see what other people are playing. A lot of the best duelists, or the most winningest duelists, I should say, a lot of them aren't necessarily like the most skilled players in the game, although they are very skilled, but they are usually the best deck builders. And so what they'll do is, after they see what tops at a regional or what tops at a YCS, they'll go and say, okay, we're going to add this in and change this up a little bit so I can beat that variant right there. And so staying ahead of the curve is the most important part. And that's just for competitive players. If you're a casual player, you know, just figure out what works best in the casual game, or what's cheap or whatever, and what works in your casual deck. It doesn't really matter to me, since I'm more so a casual player, what you play. But these tips right here, these steps, are good strategies for deck building. Just being able to know off the top of your head some of the staples and some of the good tech cards to go with certain decks, as well as certain engines like the Invoked engine or the Spellbook engine. Just knowing those things, having a good general knowledge, and also looking at other people and playtesting, those are the keys to making a good deck. Thank you guys for watching. If you want more videos, please like and subscribe. And this is Blacktop signing out. Have a nice day.